want to introduce Tom Thomason, who's a local Atlanta guy. Started really his career launch at Baumgar, and started off as a product, kind of a product owner, right, or a product development guy, sales guy, and then rolled all the way to SVP of sales, and then walked them through their exit, their second exit, I guess, right? Both exits, right? And is now the SVP of Parkmobile, which is really cool. And I think how many people have used Parkmobile before? Right, super convenient. John Smith is another local sales leader of meaning. He's the CSO, our Chief Sales Officer for CareerBuilder, which is the #1 leading career site. And the next one is another Atlanta hero, Andrew Somoza, who played baseball at Georgia Tech and is a local guy, and was the founder of VendorMate. One of the founders. Okay, humble. And worked that all the way through their exit, and is now the president of uBack. He sits on multiple boards of growth companies here in Atlanta and is a real sales expert. So without that, I'm going to let the panel start.
All right. First question to you. How do you know when to stop hiring new reps when you're trying to expand your sales force?
First off, how many people in the audience actually have anxiety of all the stuff they're doing wrong? Every time I see Mike, I'm just like, oh God, I got to get back to the office. To the question, truth of the matter is I stopped hiring salespeople when finance tells me to. You know, being a sales leader, I've never met a sales leader that didn't want to have as many reps as he possibly could. And would you believe me if I told you that this is actually easy at this point?
I would not believe you.
Well, I think you will with the answer. I've been in sales for 20 years, so meaning the reason I tell you that is because I've done this the hard way and I've done this the easy way. Historically, the hard way is you have a lot of different people who run a lot of different sales teams pounding on your office door begging for headcount. And then you have to weigh the opportunity versus your resources of where you want to add heads. Today, we hire a firm like SBI who comes in and models it all for you. You know, it's really a question of opportunity versus rep bandwidth. You look at total addressable market, the winnability factors of your product, goods and services versus your reps bandwidth, with added in probably 30 or 40 other assumptions, and literally it'll model out exactly how many sales reps you need to address every single segment of your business. And they'll even give you migration patterns of as your new logo reps add heads, add accounts, and we move those over to the farmers, how you have to transition heads from one group to the other.
All right, thanks, John. So this one goes to Andrew. This is one of my favorite questions. Okay, Andrew, what's the best way to implement a new go-to-market capability, such as inside sales? Should you ask customers how they would prefer to be served, or should you establish sort of a demarcation line between, say, commercial, enterprise, or SMB, and then tell your customers how they're going to be served?
Yeah, I think I'm a big believer of serving your customer first. So, you know, every company I've ever built, or every sales model I've ever built was really understanding how the customer wants to buy, because I can sell all day long, but if you don't want to buy what I'm selling or how I'm selling it, it is a big zero. Part of our sales pitch always is, and I've always think from some of the training, either from Mike or customer-centric selling, was on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you want to buy something from me or your value of what I'm saying, and a 1, which is the hell you would have never answered my call in the first place. You know, 1 is where is that? So, you know, I look at from starting or creating an inside sales team, or, you know, literally it is varied in all the different businesses I've been in. So I've been in probably the biggest company, so I'm more of a small sales guy or a small company guy. Biggest was Borland Software years ago, and we had a number of different ways we ran that business. But probably the biggest vendor made after that was really understanding, taking into geography, taking into an inside sales team. And then we looked at and said, who are our enterprise sales force folks? Where are the market? Who are the customers? What are the size of the customers? And then implemented really the inside versus the outside. And then we used, for healthcare, we used beds to understand the difference between, we looked at geography was one, but then we also looked at letting our inside sales reps cover up to about 150 beds, because that was about the threshold where we felt they would be successful. And the rest of the time they spent getting meetings for our enterprise sales folks.
Appreciate it. One thing I'm going to slip in here, when we do this for customers, when we sort of go through this exercise and create different stratifications, one of the things we help them with, and they didn't really think about, is that you can use this as a sales campaign. What do I mean? Well, when you start drawing lines of demarcation saying, 150 beds or 100 million or whatever you start drawing your lines for, and you realize a customer drops, say, just below that, you can go to that customer and you can say to them, hey, congratulations, you're now in the category, which means you get an inside sales rep. You're no longer going to meet with Sally face-to-face anymore. And they're like, wait a minute, Sally's, I love Sally. It's like, okay, guess what? If you spend this much more, you can keep Sally. All right? And you think, and they have to understand that you're reducing your cost of sale. And you're going to promise them the same thing with an inside sales rep and all that. But if they really love Sally, they'll pony up the money. And it's also a great tell because, right, Sally's going to go tell you, they love me, right? Don't give them to the inside sales rep. Well, this will find out if they love you. So you can use a new stratification as a pretext for a sales campaign to those people clustered on that sort of near that line, above and below. Okay, Tom, you're up. What are the best ways to create new territories for new reps? Should they be created from prospects only, like the meat-eating hunter, or should you do some sort of combination of prospects and existing customers, and why?
Okay, first of all, I got these questions about a half hour ago, so I appreciate the late notice. So creating territories, I spent 10 years at Baumgar where I was employee number 15, joined the company at 2.4 million in revenue, left 10 years later at about 100 million in revenue with 300 employees. So the answer is it depends on where you are, what stage of the organization. When creating territories, you've got to look at what the potential revenue is for that territory, but also do you have the capacity to finance reps to support that area? And then how do you support those reps in building out the opportunities within that territory from a marketing perspective and then eventually an account management perspective? So what we've typically done is I've looked at the ability of the reps to what they can manage, right? Do I have 10 reps and 8 made club last year? If they did, then I'm heavily underutilized and I can go out and add 4 or 5 territories. Or we've had years where we had 9 reps and 1 hit quota or a club. So in that case, you've got to look more, okay, is it a rep issue? Is it a territory issue? And typically, we try to hire to the point where it's a territory issue. So it really depends on what stage you're at. But I would say it's geography driven and territory driven, and you just got to look at the numbers and see what works.
Okay, thanks. All right, back to you, John. One of my favorite topics. When is the right time to implement a customer success function in your organization?
I think there's 2 driving factors there. First would be when you look at your reps and all of a sudden you're in a situation where the bulk of their time or a lot of their time is not spent on revenue driving activities. What was the words that you used before?
I can't remember. I made it up. What was it?
Oh, corruption. Corruption. That corruption really hit home. Even when I was a frontline sales leader, I always had an open door policy, whether that be right or wrong, really just because I was always in the mindset. I didn't want my people to get distracted. I didn't want my people to slow down. So I did anything I could possibly can just to keep moving at all times. And when you're in a situation where you see your sales rep they're consistently being slowed down by non-revenue generating activities, it's literally heartbreaking. Then the flip side of that too is another thing you touched on was a consistent customer experience. At CareerBuilder, our products over the years have grown much more complex. A lot of integrations, a bypass, a lot of very technical terms, and quite frankly, our reps just don't have the skill set to drive a good, consistent customer experience to our clientele. And I define customer success just personally, just what it sounds, making sure our customers have a successful experience with CareerBuilder. So that means they're constantly using the product, getting a positive ROI on their investment with CareerBuilder, and it's just a different mindset. A rep comes in every day thinking about what account can I sell, and a customer service rep comes in every day thinking about what account can I save, or what account can I service, or what account's at risk. So I'm a huge proponent of customer service.
All right, thanks, John. Andrew. Is it worth it to staff the sales admin function, or has technology and self-service cloud capability eliminated the need for that role?
Yeah, I read the questions a couple of days ago, and I think I hate to say it depends. I've had some really good sales admins that do a truckload of great work for us, and I've seen some technology that can automate that as well. So I think depending on the size of your organization, same with me. We're a 10-person company, early stage again. I just invested in uBack and decided to step in and do this, but at my core, I'm a salesperson, and now I have to go implement. I don't have $375,000. I have to pay some more money, but probably won't go to that. But looking at all this, I think it depends. I think when you get to a certain size, technology will always help you scale a business that you can't do with people. So uBack serves around nonprofits, connects donors and nonprofits and major corporations. We have 300,000 nonprofits on our technology. I could never hire sales staff, a sales admin, or anyone else for that matter to support them. So I have to use technology to be able to really be able to staff that.
Okay, thank you. All right, John. No, not John. Tom. Let's see. When should you implement a global account management program so that you can provide consistent pricing across international geographies? And before I give them the platform, this used to be a question asked of big companies, right? Because it's only till it got way out there that you really needed this. But because we're now globalized, internationalized, this is actually much more of a pressing concern for smaller companies.
Yes, we lived through this at my last employer. It's early on. You want to do it early on. Now you've got currency fluctuations you have to deal with, so you have to go back and reprice pretty much every quarter, especially during the more higher fluctuations. But we did it early on. As soon as we decided we're going to go global and we launched first EMEA, we had a global account. We had global account managers handling global accounts. So very early on.
Okay, fantastic. And that's maybe a little shocking for some of you with smaller companies thinking about the need for a global account management function. Another good reason to hire a consultant. Okay, John, and here's a trick question. When should you implement a key account management program? And now here's the important part, the comma, one that requires your biggest customers with the most spend potential to actually apply for membership in your program.
I actually giggled when I saw this question. I dream of a world when any of my customers actually apply to be in a program. I don't know that this is a popular answer, but it's my answer. We built our key account program based around the customer spend with us and the complexity of the customer solution. Been at CareerBuilder a long time, and I'm not proud to say that I've lost a lot of accounts and some very, very large accounts for just the wrong reasons. Like I've literally lost $1 million account because a rep decided not to send a contract to a customer because they were upset. So at that point in time, we want to make sure our people, our top clientele, actually get the white glove treatment at all times. They look at us as a partner in our business, not just a line item, because that's another area we fall into if we're not servicing our customers correctly. And that's really, we just want to make sure these guys that are spending a lot of money with us are taken very good care of. We want to make sure they're getting the right ROI on their investment with us, and it's just constant contact between the two, really a team effort.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is Andrew. We've got one more question each, and we're done. So this question, should the sales operations and sales enablement function be separate or combined? And just so that you all know that this is not a big company question. Our company, we have less than 100 people in our company, and we have a different person in each role. So this is something for small companies too. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, my thought is, literally, I called I have a sales and business mentor, a guy named Dave Swickerath, who ran CA for a while, and then he ran App Dynamics on the enablement side. They're two separate functions to me. And it's funny, I was talking to Gavin about this before. Depending on how big you are, it ends up being rolled into one function. But to me, the sales operations are always operational people. Any operational people in here, are these all salespeople? Okay, sorry, I don't want to offend any operational people. I've looked over the years of hiring operational people to try to be, operational people have come to me trying to be hired for a sales function. And to me, they're just kind of two different universes. There's extremely talented operational people and there's extremely talented salespeople, but it's like men and women. We're just different creatures. So I look at two separate functions. I look at the operational piece is all the CRM, deals are clean, comp credit, all of that fun stuff. And then the enablement stuff is what I say is getting the sales reps ready to go sell, roll out a new product, which are just completely two different functions. In a small company, there may be one. Heck, I do all that right now as president of my company. But as you get bigger, I'd like to see that as two different functions.
Agreed. Okay, bring us home. All right, here we go, Tom. Last one for you. Should the pre-sales engineering or pre-sales technical support group, however you want to call it, the people that are not the salespeople but they're in the sale, report directly to the sales leader, or should they report to like a chief engineering officer or somebody who's technical?
So both at Baumgar and Parkmobile, it's been up to the sales leader. they directly report to the sales leader. And the reason is that you are working a lot together. You're traveling a lot together. You want your teams being cohesive and being able to almost, finish each other's sentences. And I think being a part of the sales organization, going on, any of the sales trips, going on any of the quarterly meetings, that sort of stuff, you just build a rapport with each other. And it's important to keep that all under one entity.
Right. If any of you have been into a product-centric organization, oftentimes they control and dole out the technical resources to sales, and that causes a lot of friction, as you might imagine, and leads to not having the sort of synergy that Tom just described.
Now, you've got to have a very good pre-sales leader who's not afraid to stand up to the EVP of sales, whoever it may be. Right?
It's always fun, those conversations. Yeah. I think that's it for our 10. So now for the audience.
We actually have decent attrition at our company. I think attrition has a lot to do with your culture.
What does decent attrition mean? Does that mean you're losing a lot and it's good, or you're not losing a lot?
I'm sorry about that. We actually don't lose a lot of reps, especially now. I think historically in the past we have, but right now where we are, I think we're maybe at 10 or 15%. And I think that what drives that is your culture. If people feel like they're really a part of the company, a part about moving the company forward, it helps with just the general attitude, the general mentality of your reps every single day.
Want to know that?
Yeah, I think, I'll answer in two parts. The first part, I think, I always call it talking points by title. So if I'm selling to a CFO or I train my sales guys to say something operational to CFO, it's a fail, vice versa. The other one is what we struggle with vendor-made early on, and we did background checks on vendors selling to hospitals, simple tagline. We called it a playground pitch. So if your husband or wife was chasing the kids around the playground, what's the easiest way to translate what we did? And that was it. But what we found was if we didn't have our sales rep, also speaking now vertically as well, if we were talking healthcare and then we were talking retail and then we were talking some other sector software, it was all over the map. So we actually had it from an individual segment, if you will, and then also by titles as well.
So let me ask a question.
We separated it out. So we had the sales rep was armed. If you're a healthcare person, you spoke healthcare all day long. You didn't speak healthcare and then switch over and talk big box. You stayed healthcare focused. And you stayed healthcare focused. And then we had our exact, what we call trying to think of the acronym we used, but back in the day, it was our ideal customer, ideal hospital profile. We knew that a 450-bed hospital would generate $53,000 a year and sign a $3.8 million deal. So we knew on some of your scales of exactly when somebody called us. Under 25 beds, we didn't return the call. We didn't have time. 150 was a different level, up a higher enterprise. That's how we handled that.
So one thing extra on Simon's point here. His question was about the selling to personas, which was part of the dimensions. Two things. The first is that those of you who find that when you do the research that the buyers or influencers in your customers are different people, and you say, gosh, my rep, that person, and I can't afford to pay more, can only kind of talk to a certain level, is that you as a sales leader or your CFO or your marketing person, they're part of the sales team. So when you get the meeting with the CEO, you, the CEO, you're going to that meeting. You are the sales leader in that meeting, and your responsibility is to talk to the CEO like a CEO. Not to talk product, not to talk features, not to try to sell them. You're to have the executive conversation. Or you bring along the marketing leader, or you bring along the CFO. So when you're a smaller company, understand that a good rep leverages your entire C-suite of your company and maps them to the customer or the prospect. And the second thing is, if any of you have any of you seen what's called a persona document? If you raise your hand if you've seen a persona document. Actually, okay, not even half. So one of the things is in your organization, if you have a marketing department, probably at somewhere along the line, they have created a persona document, which is a fictive representation of your buyers or your users inside your customer base. And they use it to create content, to do marketing messaging, run campaigns. And in a bizarre reality, they almost never share it with the sales force. Like, why the hell would the sales force want to know about their customers? So one of the most important things that can be done to kind of bring the marketing and salespeople together is to actually have the persona be a joint prepared, joint used document and have it truly impact the selling process. And when you do that, you get a huge lift, and actually marketing and salespeople can begin to speak to each other.
Sure. So there are two different groups. And so we've got PCI compliance issues also. So we've got one group actually cordoned off into a room that's closed off from the rest of us. We have an account management team on our side of that door. And then we've got a customer service group on the other side of the door. And We simply, if you're a customer service, you're not selling, you're dealing mostly with the consumers and making sure that they have everything they need. Again, Parkmobile's an app, so you have consumers calling up saying, your app's not working in my parking spot. And then we've got cities and businesses. For example, the Falcons, the new stadium just signed a deal with us, so we've got to deal with them at a different level, right? So you've got more business savvy account managers who have some sales capacity because there's an opportunity to expand there. So you have different personas. To go back to your personas question, you've got very different personas on both sides of that door. So that's why we separate it out. Now it's driven a lot by PCI, but at the same time it's driven by customer satisfaction and also account opportunity.
Yeah, the key in customer success is not forcing all the customer touch point functions into one person. It's the two things. It's to make sure that you know what all the customer touch points are, and that you coordinate them. And they can be coordinated by using the same system, using the same information. I'll give you a quick story. There's a gambling company located out of Nashville. Oh, the name it escapes me. Anyway, they run casinos. And they're like the world leader, better than all the Harris, that's their name, better than all the ones on the Strip in Las Vegas in dollars per person, per customer. What do they don't call customer? I can't remember what they call it. And the reason is information custody. What does that mean? And I knew this because back when I was at EMC, I was in on the inside on this. They have a massive database that everybody shares. I mean, when I mean everybody, I mean the croupiers, the maids, the people that greet you when you walk in the door, the salespeople, they all share in the same database. And they have the same sort of referential information they need to know about you. And they know what drink you ordered last time you were there. They remember what newspaper that you ordered. They remember what room you wanted. And it's not like when you go to Marriott and you get the check, do I want it to be on the first floor or not? I mean, the list of descriptors is huge. And so what happens is that, and this is the weird part, people like, oh, wow, you know that. But what they think is, they think that the Harris cares about them. They remember, but it's not memory or even caring. It's just a system with a process and data. And if you're going to be a maid, part of your job is to enter this information in. You get paid a little more. There's more scratch in it. But they've found out that the lift is huge per person. So everybody's on the team. That's an example from years ago of what customer success looks like.
Yeah, so my question is regarding sales cadence. Would you say that there's an ideal way to do sales cadence? Who authors it? Who owns it? The structure, the execution? Do you involve sales ops? Do you not?
I would say that the head of sales would own that. When I look at sales cadence, I think, when Mike was putting the slides up, certain areas of the business were a lot better at it than others. I think when we have 20,000 active accounts at any given time. It's really easy to institute in new logos and new business. How many dials you need to make connect? What's usually the time to close per product? But then all of a sudden, when you get into the active business that have been clients for 2-3 years, it gets a little tougher. But I think that comes from the top down, and then it's a work in progress for the existing business.
One of the things that mistakes to that point is that people make is that they hire a new sales rep, let's say, and they say, hey, these are your 400 accounts. Go sell something. And what they don't realize is when they don't establish a cadence, when they don't establish a priority, you're now victim to whatever that rep wants to do, whatever sort of inclinations or biases or insight they have, which almost certainly is going to be wrong, not because that they're bad or stupid or anything, because they just need more guidance in that. And so if you have given a rep a territory like that, maybe not the phone book, but essentially our modern day equivalent of the phone book, stop doing that. They're wasting their time and your money.
Thank you. So great question. So personally, when I first started Baumgar, I came on as the enterprise sales rep, and then I left there running all sales for North America. And so I went through a sequence of job descriptions there to be promoted. The way that when we have reps come in at Baumgar, for example, everyone, whether you're a junior inside rep or you're a senior, you think you belong in the next position, right? So you got to establish a very well-defined career path. And you've got to use examples of senior reps, for example, that are doing very well and say, look at how John does it. And this is where you're not doing it quite yet. Of course you can and you build up, but it's giving that clear career path to your more junior reps as they expand. We promote it like crazy internally at Baumgar. And it when you do that, it really builds a great sales environment. And so when the junior guys come in, they see that senior guy that 5 years ago was in the same spot. So we started with demand gen, went to inside sales or account executive, went to SMB, went to enterprise, and then went to named. And we had guys start at the beginning and end at the end. And it's being very, very clear throughout the entire process with a well-defined process and a well-defined job descriptions so you can clarify what those roles are and how you can be promoted throughout.
Yeah, we did the same, almost identical to that, and we looked at it, and we started as a BDR, and then you can move to a senior BDR, and then account manager. The one caveat I would say is I was always talking to my reps along the way as well to make sure my expectation of what they wanted to do in their career stayed aligned as they better understood the business and the roles. And so I had a number of folks that came to me as they were getting ready to be promoted to the next level and realized for their own career path, they didn't want to be an account manager. They didn't want to be a regional salesperson. They wanted to go over to customer success or marketing or go to another company. And so I think that collaboration with your reps along the way to make sure where you start, and everyone wants to be an outside rep making 250, 500, whatever the number is. But what they don't understand is the path along the way may change over time in their own personal situation. They get married, they have children, they want to do other things. You just have to keep I've always stayed very close to my sales team to be able to understand, are their goals and aspirations the same? My interview question that I ask every single time, if you could do anything in the world, what do you want to do? And understanding that question along the way is how I want to get them. If they say, hey, I just want to be an outside sales rep, then usually I'm like, really? Like, you can do that. Like, what do you really want to do? Mine's to be a front man of a country band, just so if anybody ever asks. But I can't sing.
Let me add two things real quick. The first is a lot of times this career path issue, you get a very successful sales rep, and they're not aware that their sales managers pay less than they are. So they need to, in many cases at least, they need to be aware that getting promoted means bringing home less pay. So consider that strongly. The second thing is that oftentimes, and this is one of the things we find when we kind of look at sales compensation or territory cadence, is that you're paying your sales rep for recurring revenue. So you should be very knowledgeable and very sure about how much revenue every year is actually as a result of new selling motions and how many of which is either contractually or just by virtue of your exit barriers or any number of other reasons is just going to happen no matter what. And is your rep squatting on a nest egg with a huge comp plan and you're really not getting value out of their selling motions? And you'd be surprised how often that happens. Why? Because that's what I would do if I was a sales rep. I would squat on my customers and I would generate enough new business to be able to not, get noticed, but not so much that would really take time out of my day and I would collect a big paycheck. So make sure that that's not happening in your territories. And there are ways, without destroying your business, to test to see if that's actually happening.
Just to add one more thing. First off, a strong career path also helps with attrition. If people can see the light at the end of the tunnel and that next step, they're going to probably stick with you. But I will say one of the biggest challenges we had in our business, early on, we were in hyper growth mode where we were hire as many people as you can as fast as you can. And with that, there's a lot of promotions. So you create this environment where everyone's expecting that next promotion. And then all of a sudden, when things slow down, I've been in this role for 2 years. Where other people got out of that role in 6 months or a year. And that gets a little bit tough. And we've been lucky enough to introduce new products. So, kind of where Mike's slide projected, people cross-function, whether it be in sales success, whether it be in specific products, whether it be in, other areas of the business, we were able to diversify the career path. Whereas for a long time, it was like, I'm a sales rep, then I'm a sales manager, then I'm a director, then I'm a VP. And that's just kind of, next thing you know, the directors were in the same job for 5 or 6 years. There wasn't that upward mobility. And that really was a culture shock for our guys.
My question is around channel conflict, right? So you have an inside sales team, outside sales team, hunters, farmers, and probably some other variants as well. And then you have a farmer that comes across your traditional hunter-like customer, starts working a relationship. Is that something you encourage, reward, or just say, not happening, wrong behavior, do not pass go?
Go for it.
So I ran channels early in my career for everything outside of North America. What I found was my rep and the guy in New Jersey would enter a different quote into Salesforce.com, and they'd buy in New Jersey versus over in India or wherever else. And I think what my boss used to tell me, channel conflict is fantastic, right? Because you have coverage. But what has to be really clearly defined is keeping the line between who's working which account. And I think as a sales leader, I can tell you I have gray hair and I'm 15 pounds overweight, probably because, number one, that's one of the biggest challenges you have is reps going and poaching on other areas. But again, if you clearly define whose account it is, then I think for me, it's pretty clear cut to me is that once you start poaching or encroaching on somebody else's territory, that's a real problem. It's a character problem to me. And so I'm always more of a direct conversation to say, you've been working this account. I reward where effort is. So if I see that you've been the named account person on this account and you haven't made a call in 6 months in there, and this person happens to be in Dallas that day and comes across and meets somebody at a panel discussion, I think I reassess that on an ongoing basis. I don't know if that answers, hopefully answers.
I just add that we've always double comped, so I have no channel conflict between indirect and direct. So find a way to double comp if you can. And number two is regarding, let's say a mid-market rep versus an enterprise rep, I'd cut it off from day one. If I see a mid-market rep working an enterprise account, no matter how deep it is or how much work they put into it, they're losing it. It's that simple.
Yeah, I worked at EMC in the kind of the go-go days, so which was one of the most functionally dysfunctional organizations you can imagine. I have epic stories of this sort of swooping in to lay in accounts, and so it was by the book. If I was a consultant, I would be horrified. But at the end, EMC posted numbers, huge numbers, every year for 10 straight years. They were the darling of the stock market. So sometimes channel conflict is good, as long as you're paying people a hell of a lot of money. If you have a lot of channel conflict and you're paying people moderately, that's the problem.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd say is what we always struggled with at Borland back in the day was our senior VP of sales, probably maybe not the right guy at the time, but he would just say, it's all good for Borland, it's good for the company, so I don't care who closes the deal, we got the deal as a company. And
Yeah.
the reps that are in the...
That's a short-term view, right?
Yeah.
You're going to lose good people.
You lost good people.
Yeah.
I have a question about change management because you have a lot of big things that could change going through a process like this, and you have your risk mitigation side, which I really think is cool. But how do you engage the sales force here? Because this is a lot of change for them specifically if you're scaling up and you used to have a big territory and it's getting shrunken down or getting verticalized or one of the 6 different things.
Yep.
How do you deal with that?
I think, for my opinion, the way to sell, because every sales rep thinks he or she's going to take my biggest accounts, right? They have a negative framing, right? Which makes sense because it happens. So the best way to do it is to sell the white space. And white space is big and scary, and it's the phone book, and there's a million companies, and I don't want to waste my time. And sales reps all have they remember intimately all the time they wasted calling on the wrong person, spending their own long sales campaign, which they were never going to win. They can tell you that story. So you have got to dimension your white space very crisply with all the sort of concepts that we talked about, propensity to buy and personas, and say, look, you have 7 accounts right now, customers. Next year, you're going to have 4. Here's why. And then here's what I expect out of those 4. But oh, by the way, you have 10 white space accounts, and here's every single piece of information about them, including the mapping I did. And here's what I expect out of you. And at the end of the day, I have a higher leverage comp plan for you next year. You're going to make more money if you if you execute this plan. And you'll be right, and they'll be happy. At least eventually happy. Initially, they're going to whine. But that's the best. Sell the white space.
Just to dumb down what Mike said. But we're sales leaders, and quite frankly, at one point in time, we're in sales, and it's a sales job. You have to sell the opportunity. And frankly, I'm not going to sell any opportunity that I personally don't believe in. So I'm probably a cup half full to a fault. And if I think this rep can succeed in their new job, it's all about making them believe that they can as well.
Yeah, just a parting shot for me. If you've implemented a marketing automation system and you're relying on that to only generate your leads, encourage your sales reps to pick up the phone and call. I get 25 emails automated a day, and I don't even read the first sentence because I can tell it's automated. There's some gorilla or there's something cute and catchy, and there's some guys that have been in this building that have sent stuff that say, isn't that great? It got your attention, got me to open it. But I didn't take a serious action as a serious business person. please pick up the phone and call me instead, or in addition to that.
Consulting question. So,
I would tell you, I mean, yours truly right now is banging the phones right now because we haven't implemented it on, I mean, but I'm a 10-person company, so
yeah,
maybe
if you've
better
got a
for you.
demand gen capability, marketing, they should be, for the hunting part of your business, they should be filling about 35% of all qualified leads should come from marketing, and the rest should come from the prospecting efforts of the sales force, in their directed activity. The hardest thing in the world to do as a sales manager is manage the prospecting activity of a sales rep. Selling activity is easy. Prospecting is very hard. Another reason to hire a consultancy.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's it for the show today. I really do appreciate you guys coming out. Lots of words of wisdom. I learned a lot today, and I would like to put our hands together for the panelists in this group. All right, future events. We have someone in the audience, Payush from Sales Team, which is a machine learning and AI platform for sales intelligence, and I actually have started beta testing it, and they have an event coming up next week, the 18th? 17th at Georgia Tech. You guys will all be getting a flyer on that shortly today. Pretty cool stuff. There's a workshop and then basically a keynote on machine learning and sales. So that's going to be really cool. And we have our next sales leadership event on August 23rd. We're actually doing a joint event with the Marketing Society, and it's going to be around customer experience journey and how both groups play together to create the best customer experience. So I very much appreciate you guys coming today. Thank you so much, guys. Cheers. Have a great day.